Hi, my name is Sam Birley and I'm a technical director at Magnopus. I'm here to talk to you about the Connected Spaces platform and specifically interoperability, one of the core features of the client library we're open sourcing, the SDK for the platform. In this video, we're going to cover what interoperability is, why is it important, and how the Connected Spaces platform enables it. So let's dive in. So, what is interoperability? Well, in this case, I think it helps to look at it through an analogy in the form of web pages. We can think about the next internet like this. We're upgrading from a network of connected pages to a network of connected spaces. People can use software like a web browser to consume wildly different types of experiences from different companies, regardless of their device. And that's because of open standards and interoperability. But that's pages. Spaces don't have the same capabilities yet. Interoperability in the context of web pages means that you can view the same content on any device, in any place, at any time, and it will look consistent and coherent, and you see the same 2D page. Just to break that down a little bit, there's two components to interoperability we just described there. There is spatial coherence, which is the notion that multiple users will see the same content situated in the same place. But then there's also temporal coherence, which is the notion that objects should appear consistently at the same moment in time. And in the context of connected spaces, the concept is much the same, except now we're dealing with another spatial dimension, which we didn't have before. With connected spaces, we're going 3D now, whether that content we're viewing is fully virtual or digital content anchored in the real world. Why is interoperability important for the Connected Spaces platform? Well, hopefully with that web page analogy, it's self-evident. Two users who go to the same web page at the same moment in time should expect to see the same content. And the same is going to be true of connected spaces. And how did we get to this level of interoperability with the web? Well, we did it with open standards. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, they're open standards that have been iterated on over time by a community. It's the reason why we've evolved as far as we have with digital communications. Why anyone can build a web page that they can expect by default to just render on some arbitrary web browser. And it's the reason why it's good. It's essential that that practice continues for the future of the internet. So let's talk a bit about how we're building for interoperability with the Connected Spaces platform and the library that we're open sourcing, because it isn't easy and there's a long way to go. Broadly speaking, you can say that interoperable concepts in this domain break down into one of three categories: people, objects, and code. With people and connected spaces, users are represented by their avatars or personas. They've got identities, they can move through spaces and do things. These identities need to be consistent across platforms, because redefining yourself every time you visit a new store or restaurant isn't necessary in the real world, and it isn't in connected spaces either. Our identity should remain consistent regardless of where we wander. With objects, take the room I'm in now. It's a physical place, but for the sake of the argument, imagine it's digital. It would be made up of 3D models, textures, videos, sounds, and more. And those assets need to be transportable from one platform to the next, making sure they're consistent in where they are, and what they look like, and how they work. Because after all, we don't want two different people to see two different things just because they're on two different devices. And these things need to persist where we left them when we walk away and come back next day. Most conversations these days focus on asset formats when it comes to interoperability, and that's vital. But there's the other part, the way those assets are structured and related to each other, how those assets are organized. Because it's all well and good to have a chosen interoperable asset format and to be able to rely on those things being in the same place at the same point in time. But if you don't have a consistent understanding between client applications of the data that those things are referencing, like the mesh or the image or the audio, then you still don't really have interoperability. There needs to be a consistent way of describing and understanding all of that between client applications. So the library defines the business logic for how all of this data is categorized and organized. Then we have interoperable code. Things need to work the same and have the same functions regardless of which device or platform they're in. And while JavaScript is more popular in the web and C++ in Unreal or C# in Unity, we need to make sure that when someone does something on one platform, it translates to the other platforms consistently. In the code base, it isn't just the source code for the library, but also an automated language translation pipeline. And we support C++, C#, and JavaScript. There are one set of source files for the library. And the language translation pipeline, or as we call it, the wrapper generator, automatically takes care of translating that C++ API into all the other languages that we support. What that means for any client application that uses the library is that under the hood, inside the library, it's all the same code. It doesn't matter if it's a web application or a 3D Unity AR application or a command line C++ app that's running on Windows somewhere. Because under the hood, they are all executing the same code, which means by default, automatically, they are communicating in exactly the same way. It is the same communication protocol. And that's really powerful because now, by open sourcing, we can all define together what the protocol should be and what a spatial internet might look like. So, that's interoperability, what it is to us, why it matters, and how we're going about supporting it. Because this isn't theoretical. We've been building a whole load of client applications on top of this library. And watching someone walk around in AR on a phone, having them witness an Unreal Artist adjust the scene in real time from the editor is magic. It never gets old. It's been a journey to get here. We've been working on this kind of technology for years, but I am hugely excited that we're now open sourcing it because this journey is far from over. And we believe that for this to work, it's going to require all of us together. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something. And if you want to learn even more, then check out our repo on GitHub.